Brother Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Ricky. How you feeling, man?
Man, blessed this morning. I know you got a lot.
Man, I got 3 things y'all need to know about Black history, and so don't interrupt me, Ricky, because I got to go quick.
Okay.
So the first thing y'all need to know is never complain about the fact that Black History Month is in February. It's not because it's the coldest and shortest month of the year. It's because Carter G. Woodson in 1927, when he created Negro History Week, understood that there were 2 people that were critically important to the history of Black people in America. And one of them was Frederick Douglass. The other was Abraham Lincoln. Both of their birthdays were in February. That's why we celebrate Negro History Week initially in 1927 in February and changed to Black History Month in the 1970s, because we realized that we didn't have enough time to be able to celebrate. It's not about this is the time we study our history. It's about this is the time we celebrate our history. Understand the difference. Yes, you have a birthday, but that don't mean you don't live the rest of the year. So understand that this is a time of celebration, not the only time we should be talking about or celebrating our history. The second thing that you need to know is that Black history is deeper than the civil rights movement and slavery. And so stop being like it was slavery was bad, Martin Luther King marched on Washington, and the Voting Rights Act got passed, and then Barack Obama got elected president. That's Black history. Black history, Ricky, as you well know, goes from now to the beginning of time. And so if we're clear, y'all, we start with like the folks in 2014 and 15 that protested to be able to change things in local communities. And then you go further back than that. And you talk about the turn of the century and those like Obama and Oprah, who changed not only politics, but business in a way we've never seen before. But you don't stop there. Go further back and talk about those in the 1990s, and even back into the 80s, like Ron Brown and Jesse Jackson Sr. that said that they didn't want to allow somebody else to tell them how they played a role in politics, but they did it themselves. But don't stop there. Go further back, because you can't have an Obama, you can't have a Jesse Jackson without a Shirley Chisholm, who understood the first African-American elected to Congress and the first Black woman to seriously run for president. But don't stop there. Go further back. Talk about the 1960s and the heyday of the civil rights and Black power movements, and talk about organizations like SNCC and CORE and the SCLC and nameless and faceless men and women that will never have their story told, but were represented by the likes of Martin Luther King and others. But don't stop there. Go further back and talk about the 1950s and those like Charles Hamilton Houston and Thurgood Marshall, who were lawyers who understood that the fight to change America took place not just in the streets, but in courtrooms and in policy legislative houses all over the country. But don't stop there. Go further back and talk about the 1930s and 40s when Black communities got built all over the country in places like Raleigh, Durham, and places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we understood the value of the dollar and we took care of ourselves. But don't stop there. Go further back. Talk about the 1920s and those like people like Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association that weren't just talking about going back to Africa, but had a fleet of ships, a global publication called the Negro World, and chapters in almost every continent on this planet before there was Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and email. But don't stop there. Go further back and talk about the turn of the century and organizations like the NAACP, organizations like Alpha Phi Alpha and other fraternities and sororities that were founded at the turn of the century to understand we needed our own institutions. But don't stop there, y'all. Go further back and talk about the late 1800s and those that understand that even though I didn't have 40 acres and a mule, I could create something out of nothing. And families that understood that even though they had been slaves, they could create something in this country. But don't stop there. Go further back and talk about those nameless and faceless men and women that stood on stages and got sold as if they were cattle or oxen, but never lost their minds, continuing to marry and love each other, even in the face of aggression. But don't stop there. Go further back and talk about the bones that lay on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean as a result of the treachery of over 300 plus years of a transatlantic slave trade. But don't stop there, y'all, because we had a history before slavery. And talk about the ancient civilizations of Ghana and Mali and Songhai, empires that established trade in Africa and the Middle East. But don't stop there. Go further back and talk about the ancient civilization of Kemet, or the institution Timbuktu, that opened its doors to the world before Socrates and Aristotle and talked about religion and science and mathematics. But don't stop there, y'all. Go further back. Because I don't know about you, but when the Bible says he had skin like burnt bronze and hair like lamb's wool, that sounds like a brother to me, y'all. But don't stop there. Go further back and talk about Moses and the ancient Ethiopic Hebrews and understand where our history came from. But don't stop there. Go further back, because just understand that from the time this world was created, there were people that look like you and me on this earth. And that's not about us challenging anybody else's race. It's about y'all knowing who you are, because the last thing y'all need to know is that Sankofa is real. You cannot go forward without having a full sense of who you are. It doesn't mean you stay in the past. It means you use it to build the kind of future that I know as a people we can. Those are three things I got, Rick. I'm out.
Brother Jeff, wish you
Yes,
was my
sir.
I really wish I had a history teacher like you, man. That was really, really, really awesome the way you took it all the way back. Thank you so much for that.
Appreciate y'all.
How can you be reached?
Y'all can hit me on Jeff's Nation on Instagram or Twitter. Make sure this month is real, Rick. We're gonna celebrate this the right way.
Absolutely, man. Brother Jeff, y'all.
Yeah.
Peace, y'all.
All right, Rickey Smiley Morning Show.